All right.
Okay, Madam Chair, we're now recording.
I don't have my gavel. I'm very disappointed. All right. Meeting of the Municipality of Anchorage Board of Ethics is hereby called to order. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll?
Yes, Ms. Whit-Pearson,
Here.
Mr. Kelly, Mr. Goodstein, Ms. Mogadam,
Here.
Mr. Teagarden.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And I believe Mr. Goodstein is excused and we expect Mr. Kelly midway through the meeting. Is that correct? Okay. All right. So, do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
A second.
Second.
All right, and I approve that motion. So
Getting
the
reminding
agenda
here.
is approved. Don't feel any pressure.
I'm the only one left.
Are you seconding? Would the members of the board like a moment to review the minutes, or are we ready for a motion to approve?
Well, so we had two sets of minutes. There was January of 2022 and then June of 2020.
January of 2022.
22.
Yeah, I was confused by that as well because
Is that correct?
Yes, the clerk, Barbara Jones, she retired, but before she did, she wanted to get in, there was a straggler from 2022.
That was
minutes,
never
so,
approved.
yeah, so
Wow.
That's why that's in your
But-
packet.
I wouldn't remember. I mean, I don't know
Neither.
that we can.
neither of us were there. So
I think we discussed that last time, or there were was that you could approve it even if you weren't there, but it was just, I mean, it's noted that you're just, we can't verify, right? Wasn't that what we discussed last time?
I think we discussed that with respect to matters, right, and opinions. I don't know that we've discussed it with respect to minutes.
Okay.
I don't know if our council has any thoughts on whether we can approve minutes we weren't present for. I believe we've not in the past precluded people from voting to approve minutes who were not present. So if that is precedent, then I think I would say we are permitted to approve the minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's anything that prohibits it, so.
Okay, and at some point we reach impracticality if we're improving the minutes that are
Yeah.
a year and a half old. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of January 19th, 2020 and June 28th, 2023?
so moved.
So seconded it.
All right, I support that motion as well, so we'll consider those minutes approved. All right, so now we are on to our consent agenda. I know we have Mr. George here with us. Hello. We asked to join us for some questions regarding his disclosure that we reviewed in preliminary fashion at our last fully constituted meeting 2 months ago. So I propose we start there, and before we get into a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety. So that, Mr. Jordan, you want to come and join us? I think we said in the corner. We know each other, but I'm Becky Peterson, Chair of the Board of Ethics. You just want to introduce each other, yourselves?
Patrick Teagarden.
Kelly Mogadam.
And I'm Paul Everstein, the Administrative Hearing Officer,
Okay.
Our legal counsel.
not a board member.
Good to meet you all. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. We asked you to join us honestly because this is the second issue that you disclosed with respect to your relationship with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services is an issue that has come up in various other contexts before this board and something that we've had to unpack in other contexts as well. So it seemed that we had some follow-up questions and wanted to know some more details about that relationship before signing off on what is relatively, usually a routine kind of sign off on disclosures of economic interests. So with that, can you tell us a little bit more about your relationship with Berkshire Hathaway and CY Investments and the potential issues with Holton Hills?
Certainly. Yeah, for the record, I don't know if we're recording, but
Yeah.
Daniel George, William Daniel George. I applied to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission and was appointed, and the Assembly did confirm, and I made the disclosure at the time of accepting the appointment. I am a 1099 employee of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Alaska Realty. which is a franchise of Berkshire Hathaway. Connie Yoshimura is the managing broker, day-to-day broker, and owner of the franchise here in Alaska. I don't have any knowledge of details beyond that as far as the economics of how that works. I don't receive a W-2, and I enter into an employment services agreement with Berkshire Hathaway, Alaska's office, annually. I pay a cap, essentially part of my commissions for sales up to a certain dollar amount every year go to the brokerage, basically pay a desk fee, if you will. After that point, I continue to pay a royalty to Berkshire Hathaway. I'm not sure if it's a local or national. I think it's about 6%, and then a small transaction if you have every transaction. So that's how I'm compensated. As far as involvement with CY Investments, that my understanding is that's a separate company that Connie has. I think I looked online one time and saw she had dozens of companies. I don't know. How many of those are still active and that sort of thing. My understanding is that she has been a developer in Holton Hills, which has been under contract with the municipality of Anchorage for a development agreement. Holton Hills is a project that they've developed. Berkshire Hathaway, I think, has the rights to advertise and possibly sell, although I think that's probably exclusive to Connie and her staff. I haven't heard that being offered to other realtors in the brokerage like myself. I don't work out of Connie's direct office, so she has her own office suite within the brokerage itself, where she's got an associate broker and other staff that work specifically on her transactions and her investments and that sort of thing. I work out of my own separate office. I pay a desk fee on, and I work with my own clients for the most part of my field. Hopefully that's thorough enough. If you have any questions, I'm happy to delve further.
I presume from this that your license is active, or something, a doltish question, but this has been something that's come up in previous iterations of this fact pattern, whether or not a license is active or not.
Yes, I actually at one time shared an office with Christopher Constant.
Familiar with this.
So I suspect that's what you're referring to with the Berkshire Hathaway issue coming up. I am not privy to any of the previous discussions, on how this all worked with licensees and working and voting on these sorts of things. I got my license in 2017 with Dwell Realty LLC, which in 21, I think, became Berkshire Hathaway. So my license continuously was hung with the same brokerage. Same license number. I've been active continuously ever since 2017. License 128157 with the state of Alaska as a licensee, not as a broker or associate broker.
Okay. And does Ms. Yoshimura what is the level of influence she has over the amount of business that you might receive? Like the key question here being, like, obviously we don't have direct financial interest in CY Investments based on the facts you've shared, but there is the question of, whether, if there's sort of attenuated connection of if you were to take action that was adverse to the person who had direct control over your financial interest in your real estate practice. That's kind of the terminal question here. How much impact does she have over your business?
My ability to pay my bills and
your ability to get referrals, to, if I'm maybe using the incorrect terminology, but essentially to have clients seek your services, to have clients directed to your services, to have properties assigned to you or seek you out to for your services.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. In order to answer it, I'll kind of do it in two parts. One is realtors can receive referrals from their own broker.
Yeah.
Typically, there's a referral fee. It's negotiable. 20-30% of a gross commission would go to a broker in that instance. I have not had a case in my 6 years of being licensed where a broker referral has panned out into a sale. We get a lot of folks that inquire through the internet or just folks that reach out and she has more business than she can handle, and so she'll hand off to various realtors. From the period of March 2019 through March of 2023, I had an active license but did not very actively participate in real estate. I did not advertise my name. I was precluded by congressional ethics from using my name to advertise in a fiduciary capacity. I did sell a few houses as a second licensee. I co-listed and sold a few homes. But I had an outside income limit under U.S. House of Representatives ethics and a couple of other federal laws I'm forgetting the statutory reference to, where when you are a senior staff member in the congressional system, you cannot practice a fiduciary after a certain point in the year when your salary is at a total accumulation amount. So I could sell houses early in the year, basically.
Interesting.
That's all I could do.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So they treat real estate licensees similar to insurance salesmen, lawyers, doctors, that kind of thing, where they're fiduciary. So I didn't do a whole lot of business for those years, and that's the time when it transitioned from Dwell to Berkshire Hathaway. Since I've returned full-time, I signed a new employment services agreement in March 2023. I've sold homes. I have taken opportunities where leads come to the brokerage, and I've tried to chase them down, but to this point, nothing has panned out into a actual sale that I've had. In full disclosure, I will be doing a listing in Girdwood that I will be co-listing with my broker, Connie Yoshimura, and that will be a matter of public record here in the next week. The compensation on that would be 50-50 of the listing office side.
Are there any other ways in which Ms. Yoshimura has some kind of impact on your business? Like, can she take your license out of the brokerage? This is my ignorance of the real estate field. Could she decline to renew your contract because she's upset that you took action on Holden Hills that was not in accordance with your wishes?
Under the state of Alaska's broker licensure laws, every active licensee and even a referral licensee has to hang their shingle under a broker. And as the broker of Berkshire Hathaway, she could at any time decide that I'm no longer welcome to the brokerage, or alternatively, I could part ways as well. Realtors quite frequently actually do switch between brokerages where they will leave and they'll go to another brokerage. I certainly get offers on a regular basis to join other brokerages here in town. The reason that I don't know if it's material or not, the reason I joined with Berkshire Hathaway, Well Realty previously, was I worked for a local builder for 5 years who she used to sell the homes for, John Hagmeyer.
Yeah. Okay. You guys have any questions? I realize I asked lots of questions.
So, I guess I would ask is that, so it would be correct to state that based on actions that you could take, it could influence the quality of the referrals that you could receive from Connie. In other words, you can.
That's a very pertinent question. It has never come to my mind because I've never received any referrals that have panned out before. I've been able to be a successful full-time licensee without those referrals in the past. And so I believe if I receive no further referrals from today forward, I could still do that and I could still practice in the business. So the question is, does the quality of the referrals potentially hinge upon official action? I think is what if I'm understanding your question. It hasn't been told to me that way. I will offer that in the other disclosure I have with the Federation of Community Councils, as the chair of the council, Federation of Community Councils, Mark Butler was my employee, and obviously he and the Holden Hills issue were in the news and that sort of thing. Connie and her staff never came to me, never told me to do anything, never asked me to take any action, and I still continue to receive opportunities, despite what might be considered a negative occurrence towards that development. I never felt pressured in that regard.
Okay, but you could, for example, I mean, I'm just looking through the possibilities here, but there could be the potential for an indirect compensation to a favorable action by providing some good referrals to you all of a sudden. If that,
Are we talking specific to Holden Hills?
with any, I mean, just as a realtor with a broker in this case right here, where you're receiving referrals and being on a board where you can make decisions for planning and zoning, it would be possible for there to be an indirect compensation potentially through referrals, basically.
If that were to start occurring in advance of an action or in advance of something possibly taking place on it, I suppose that could be a question that I would have to consider. To the best of my knowledge, the action was taken by the Assembly on this, and I don't know. I guess the whole disclosure is predicated on this issue coming back before the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is the commission that I sit on. So I guess we're talking a hypothetical situation where a decision on this did go back for Planning and Zoning again, which I've not been made aware that it would, but it theoretically could, and that's why we're here. kind of talking through this a little bit aloud to try and scope it. If I were, I suppose I would get quite suspicious if I were to start getting lucrative referrals, or even for them to start increasing in quality. I don't really know how to answer the question. I suppose
But it's possible.
the opportunity
I mean,
to have
that's-
additional business, as an individual who's involved in sales.
All right.
But there's nothing immediate and known, right? So the standard we look at for the code citation is 115060 D and E, which is what concerns conflict of interest, right? And the conflict of interest, I'm sure you know this, is that a public servant can participate in an official action in which the public servant or member of the public servant's immediate family has a substantial financial or private interest. And then either we or the body upon which you sit, to which you would make a disclosure in the instance of a potential conflict, is to weigh some of the following factors. Whether there's the financial or private interest is a substantial part of the matter under consideration, whether the financial or private interest directly and substantially varies with the outcome of the official action, whether the financial or private interest is immediate and known or conjectural and dependent on factors beyond the official action, which sounds like it goes through this line of questioning, like there is potentially a conjectural impact that's dependent on factors beyond the official action, but you're taking action on Holden Hills would have no direct financial impact on your operation as a real estate licensee.
That is correct. So, to my knowledge, I would not have access to listing of the properties themselves within Holden Hills. That would be Connie Yoshimura and CY Investments. That doesn't preclude her from opening it up to other realtors outside of her office necessarily. There is always a question of, if you approve a development, those developments do need to be sold, and so yes, that increases listings that might exist in the market. You're creating an opportunity for sales to occur. But do those sales tie directly to myself, or the ability to make those? No, not more than any other realtor at Berkshire Hathaway, or even outside the brokerage that would have the opportunity to sell those.
So Berkshire Hathaway doesn't have like an exclusive right to sell the Holden Hills properties?
I don't know.
if they're
I actually
not-
don't have a copy of the development agreement in front of me, so I don't know if it's specific to, if she's the only one who can initially list them, or if the lot is sold and then a developer, like a builder, comes in and builds the home on it. Because she's not a home builder, she's a developer.
Yeah.
So, for instance, say she sold a lot, and then someone else had a builder build the home on the lot and as an investment, and then wanted to sell it. I don't know the details of if there's a residual payment to her. I haven't dug through the.
If there was like a residual payment to her, would that have an impact on you because it goes to her as Berkshire Hathaway and that somehow benefits everyone whose license lives there?
I think if there was a residual in that development, it would probably be a characteristic of pretty much all developments. Builders sometimes do residuals, but I'm not aware if there is one or not in the development agreement. I would actually have to go and look at that specifically, since I wasn't consulted in the development agreement and the process of bidding and that sort of thing. I apologize, I don't know those offhand.
No, that's fine. It's just another nuance to this is to me, I think it is interesting if for some reason Berkshire Hathaway does have some kind of exclusive right to have its licensees sell all of these new properties that may have more of a direct and substantial impact on your work than any of these other factors in my estimation.
And it would seem like what the scenario I'm kind of thinking of is that, obviously, the actions taken, and over time, because of positive actions, the relationship improves between you and Connie's, and then, so the concern would be that over time you would individually get access that the rest of the real estate committee or the rest of the real estate community didn't have. Obviously, if she went over and opened it up to all the realtors, that would not be an issue potentially. But if she went over and said, I've got these 5 select people I want to open this up to, that I think could potentially be seen as a problem. And that's all I was thinking at there. So.
Thank you. And just to put a finer point on that, my understanding is that she has the exclusive right to sell the lots under the development. That's
Okay.
what I've read. But I have no knowledge of that being offered as a co-listing with anyone else.
Sure.
So it might be something she sells all of them herself.
Yeah, and she oftentimes does list her lots and I actually rarely see her co-list them. I would probably, in that case, decline to co-list a lot on something that I voted on. And I'm happy to, if we could have me agree agree to something like that.
Offer that
Seems like a
caveat.
good fail-safe.
I mean, so for your background, I mean, we've considered this issue previously, and the advice we have previously, this is on the record, Mr. Constant has shared this at an assembly meeting, the informal advice we've previously given him is that we did not find an across-the-board conflict inherent in his having a license which lived at Berkshire Hathaway. Our advice to him that would preclude him from voting on anything related to the Holton Hills development. We did advise him to disclose in full his conflict to the board, to the assembly in that instance, prior to any official action commencing, which means prior to any discussion or consideration of anything related to it, and to allow for public questioning on the record, because that's what the ethics code ponders, right? It says every time there's a potential conflict, the public servant's supposed to, ask the body upon which they sit for an opinion, and the chair gets to make a ruling, or the board, can vote on it. So we advised him to always disclose, but that our informal advice to him was that we didn't find it to be a preclusive conflict in every instance. That there may be certain situations where there is a type of decision that maybe means that he would have to recuse himself, or the facts may change, right? In your instance, like there may over time be a closer relationship between the licensees at Berkshire Hathaway and the opportunity to sell Holton Hills lots or something like that. And those factors would be things that you would need to disclose to the Planning and Zoning Commission for consideration and a vote prior to participation in a matter. And so that's been our previous advice on a very parallel set of facts, with the exception that I believe at the time that we provided Mr. Constant this advice, his representation to us was that his license was inactive, so there was no possibility of him selling anything. So we didn't delve into this question of if the lots were exclusively sold by Berkshire Hathaway, would you yourself be selling them, and thus making money off of the development. So my initial inclination is that I appreciate you coming to vet this with us, and that I want to make you aware of our previous advice to Mr. Constant and say that is where the board's position has been. I think in your case, it's important to disclose to the Planning and Zoning Commission that that the lots will be exclusively sold by Berkshire Hathaway, and any commitment you might make or not make to participate in or not participate in those sales. I think that's a relevant financial interest that the Planning and Zoning Commission needs to be aware of before they make a determination about whether you should participate in any vote on the matter. And I would also notify you that we have another request in a separate track regarding this same fact pattern, which will probably result in a published opinion from the board. And so when that happens, we would provide that to you as well, in case that contains any changes in the advice of the board.
Okay.
And that's my initial response. I don't know if others want to chime in. I mean, this is the framework for this is not that you've made a request for a formal opinion from the board, but that because there's a sort of an out in this process where you can come in and talk to the Board of Ethics for further advice about the things that you've disclosed if we have questions or you have questions, so we don't end with like a final written opinion to you, but just offer this opportunity to discuss the items you've disclosed. Do you guys have anything further you want to add?
Good.
Is that clear enough to operate on?
I believe it is. I appreciate the opportunity for guidance, and in the real estate community, a disclosure is often viewed as a suit of armor. If you disclose it, it's not supposed to be able to hurt you. I prefer to disclose something that could be a potential conflict of interest and let the board decide, rather than not disclosing it until the moment of, and then risking the perception that it was not forthcoming.
Oh, absolutely, and you've correctly disclosed it here, and this is the right process to have, to pick it apart with us and then get our guidance, and then again, the code will contemplate you continuing to, at any time, if there's something that concerns Holton Hills, the beginning of the discussion, prior to the discussion, disclosing your potential conflict and having a ruling from the board about whether you can continue, or the commission, about whether or not you can continue to participate or not.
So if I could make sure that I understand what the advice of the board is, that should something with Holton Hills come before the board, that it would be appropriate for me to disclose that at the Planning and Zoning Commission and let the commissioners decide whether I should recuse.
Correct. And I would say my additional layer on that is I think the most important fact that might be dispositive based on the factors in the code is whether there's any kind of direct financial impact to you. And the one potential direct financial impact I see is the exclusive right to sell the lots held by the brokerage. That's an important nuance to disclose. The board may or may not decide that that precludes you from participation, especially if you say, well, I will not participate in the sale of any of these lots, something like that. But I think that's an important factor for to be part of your disclosure based on the facts that are in the code itself. But our advice would be that we, if not previously advised, that this type of relationship is a blanket prohibition where you have to recuse yourself. We have in certain instances given people the advice like this means you have to recuse yourself in every instance concerning this organization because it's not proper for you to vote on something where you have a direct financial interest in this outcome. But our advice has been here, it's kind of a case-by-case, disclose it and get a ruling from the board.
Okay.
One question. Are there any other real estate agents that are on that board?
Planning and Zoning Commission. I haven't looked to see if people have their license. I think Andre Spinelli, I would think he probably have a real estate license, but I don't know. He's a developer. And I have seen him declare conflicts and recuse and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't looked up the other individuals to see if there's another licensee.
I'm just curious if that was a common. I mean, obviously there's a connection. Realtors would probably be a fairly.
That board is like a hotbed of conflicts because everybody on there is some form of developer, real estate salesperson. Like it's the whole point of the board, right? It's like the building board where everybody is a builder.
It's like if you had a board of dentists and you said, well, you're a dentist, you're conflicted out. You can't, so you'd have a board of dentists with just dentists on it. Like you're going to need a developer and a realtor and folks with perspectives. This came up in our last meeting on Monday, actually, when Andre Spinelli recused himself in the situation where we were potentially going to extend Mountain Air Drive. Which would create a second access to a development that he already owns. But he has already gone through the process and created a separate water system just to assuage fire concerns, and his lots are already at the point of being sold. So I personally didn't feel that he continued to have a conflict, but the board did, and so the board took the action that it felt was appropriate for him to recuse, and I feel confident the board is capable of doing that even in my case.
Yeah, I absolutely think that's the case, especially because that board is uniquely, everyone there is versed in the type of conflicts that come from people working in the industry that they also regulate. So.
I was just going to mention one thing. So you said anytime a proposal involving Holton Hills comes up, but I think it's anytime anything that could benefit CY Investments or Berkshire Hathaway in other contexts might be, this would apply as well. Then I was also going to mention on the preventative measures that you discussed here, I request the Board of Ethics to determine whether an actual conflict exists and whether I have to recuse myself. And as you heard from the board, that is going to change based on the facts of each individual case. So what their advice is to make a disclosure. And then I was going to give you a copy of this. 115060E has kind of the procedures, and I think the new version really lays it out really well.
This is the new one that was recently adopted?
Right,
Okay.
as far as like what information should be disclosed, and basically so the rest of the commission understands what the interest is.
Oh yeah, I realize
So
I
they
have
can
the
vote.
old one in front of me. I need to get the updated
So
one into my packet.
this is, you can keep this
Thank
copy
you.
if you'd like, that kind of has the procedure on how to make the disclosure.
Okay. And you made an interesting reference to any other sales that can be impacted. It's interesting because in real estate we distinguish between a listing and a sale is actually where they bring the buyer. My understanding is that Connie Oshimura and CY Investments or her broker license have exclusive right to list the lots in Holden Hills, but any licensed agent could bring a buyer. So there wouldn't be any benefit on being on the buyer's side in those, more than any other individual.
Fair.
Yeah, just the point is any interest that came before the commission that involved CY Investments or Berkshire Hathaway would raise the same issues, not just the Holden Hills project.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything more we can offer to you?
Is it just the consideration of the Berkshire Hathaway issue today, or is there any thoughts on the, I guess, identified the conflict with Federation Community Councils? I don't know if that also requires consideration or not.
I'm just looking at that one again. That one had, let's see here. So that one, the FCC holds a $90,000 contract that the Assembly controls the renewal of, and you no longer sit on the board, but you have a delegate. How many delegates are there?
There is one delegate from each community council. There are 37, and from among themselves, they elect the executive board.
Okay. And and so, who's coming as a boundary or other matter? Describe what the matters are that the Planning and Zoning Commission, I admit that I was thinking about this in terms of the approval of the contract itself, but I realize that sits within the purview of the Assembly and not Planning and Zoning.
Yes, I don't know whether a change of community council boundary goes through planning and zoning. I do know that every 10 years when there's a census and realignment, there's also a code required examination and possible revision of community council boundaries that is adopted by the Assembly, but I don't know if it goes anywhere else first.
Paul, do you know that? Do you know if the boundaries of the community councils go through Planning and Zoning?
I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head, so
You know, either.
I'd have to look that up. Would it be, I mean, that would be just be the same type of issue though, that would be required disclosure.
No, this one feels much more attenuated to me, but it seems like if there is a matter that concerns the work of the FCC that goes in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission, it seems like there a disclosure would be relevant. There, I think it'd be hard. I'm trying to figure out what the substantial interest is, because it doesn't sound like there's a financial monetary interest that would vary with any action of the Planning and Zoning Commission, because it also has to, and you're not on the board, right? So generally we've imputed to board members the interest of their organization as a personal interest.
Being a member would be, for example, if you're a member of the city and you're able to vote.
Well, that goes to whether it's possessed by a public or a large class of persons,
Right.
and so that's why I asked how
37.
many members there are. Yeah, so there it's not as attenuated as if it impacts the whole public, then we're
Right.
like automatically you're kind of out
Right.
because everybody has the same interest.
That's
There'd be nobody in the muni qualified, and then it's always kind of gradations.
Where do you
We've
get
been
to the
between
point?
that to a 3-person board where everybody benefits substantially.
I don't have a direct personal financial benefit, I believe.
I mean, my inclination is the same as Paul's, which is that if there is something that this would be a disclosure, if there is something that comes before Planning and Zoning that would impact the work or viability or success of the Federation of Community Councils because you're a delegate to the FCC, but it's unclear now whether that will happen at all or whether that would even cause a substantial, raise any kind of question of a substantial financial or private interest. I suppose if the Planning and Zoning Commission had the authority to eradicate the FCC, that's certainly something that, like, that level of extremity would be something where you would potentially, that would be a substantial enough conflict that might merit a board decision that you could not participate. I don't think that's legally true. So, I would say disclose in the instance that there is something that comes up on the commission that impacts, again, the finances or viability or success of the Federation of Community Councils.
That's actually an interesting. I mean, as you're saying that right there, it makes me think that, okay, so the Federation of Community Councils goes over and they have a project that is a key to their viability as an organization. So I would say the relationship of on the zoning board recusing yourself would be how much of an impact does it have towards this organization if it's a minor project that has really no big impact, but if it concerns the whole viability of the organization, then I think it becomes a
Yeah, and it goes back to the same factors in the code,
Yeah.
whether or not it's substantial.
sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in.
Certainly. I appreciate the advice. I appreciate your time. Is there any kind of written item following up that I would anticipate, or is it just the guidance that I receive?
It's just guidance that you receive unless you want to get a formal, written opinion from the board. Again, we do have a matter that's somewhat parallel to the second your question regarding Berkshire Hathaway under consideration, where we will issue a written opinion eventually. Okay. So we'll make sure that makes it to you for your documentation and education. But other than that, you are able to rely on the oral advice that we've given you here.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, do I have a motion from the board? Thank you for coming in. To approve the consent agenda now that we have Mr. George. municipal. Do we have any more details about Mr. Ablubaid's sale of foreclosure properties? Is he gonna buy one of the properties that's up for foreclosure? Anyone have any idea? We might need to invite him to come and talk to us next month.
I don't know that. Yeah, this is all the info that we have.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Because I don't see any issue with anyone else's disclosures other than Mr. Ablubaid's, and it's because I am having a hard time understanding exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm curious if it's like, is this an ongoing thing? Because sale of foreclosure properties.
Yeah, and is he
Plural
selling
tells
them
me-
or buying
yeah.
them? Because we do sell, like, foreclosed upon properties, meaning like sells off in tranches every year, but I can't tell from the language of this disclosure whether he just wants the freedom to bid on a property that's been foreclosed upon, or if he's like has a contract to be the auctioneer that
Well,
sells
yeah,
them.
exactly.
Or something.
Usually the bank is the,
Yeah. I don't happen to see any issue with Assemblymember Brawley's disclosure. It sounds like there was a potential
sounds like it went away.
economic interest that has gone away, and she's not an owner of Agnew Beck, so that doesn't continue. And then Mr. Owen's disclosure, I also don't have an
$500.
issue with that,
Yeah.
that someone else in a different department will manage that, and I don't think he has any role as an attorney in that $500 signed contract.
Yes.
So I think I would be prepared to approve all with the exception of Mr. Ablubaid's and ask that he be invited to come and talk with us at our next meeting. I don't know how others feel. If we need more time to read.
I'm also wondering too, now that I think about it, you know, the purchase and sale of foreclosed properties, I mean, any property is usually pretty time sensitive.
Yeah, true. So I don't know if we could, who is anyone serving the role that Dee served previously of offering kind of interim advice from the board, like in between board meetings? Is it you, or is it Megan, or is it no one?
I think no one right now, but either one of us could.
Because I feel like in a D universe, I would have someone reach out to Mr. Ablubaid and say, we need more information. If this is time sensitive, you should talk with Deanna. Like I think I would have previously I had Dee reach out to him and figure out like if it was like he needs to bid on something next week. Because to me, if it's just that he wants to bid on a foreclosed upon property,
I can call him up and then figure out if it's time sensitive. If not, we can arrange to have him
come next month.
next month.
Okay. And then we can, I think you could offer him interim advice that addresses the code's applicability to his situation. Okay, do I have some motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of Mr. Abubaid.
Second?
Should we provide direction on the record regarding how we want to have Mr. Avasi to reach out to Mr. Abubaid to gauge the timeliness of his request
Yep.
and have him come in and see us next month?
Next month, yeah.
And the second thing, the thought is that maybe just making the mayor's office aware that because this is like the second situation where there's potentially with Berkshire Hathaway that for future board members that are being considered, that ought to be looked at just to see if that isn't if it doesn't,
Sounds like this has been an issue before.
It has been,
for
yeah.
a
This
long
specific
time.
this specific fact pattern has been an issue before, and is,
Yeah.
as we all know, under consideration in a different opinion. That board really is a hotbed of like everybody who's on there is like, I develop houses for a living. I like subdivide land for a living. I survey land for a living. So it's like, I mean, I don't know exactly who's on there now, but historically, I feel like everybody on that board has had some kind of substantial conflict with some kind of substantial number of projects.
I would be concerned
Yeah.
if there were multiple people on that board who had the relationship with the same
The same person.
broker.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's just because it's a hotbed. That would be just something
And she herself was on the board for a long time. I don't know if you knew that. She was
I
on
did
the
not.
board for a very long time. She was the chair of the board. So there's
yes. So
no
anyway,
longer
just
on the
just
board, but
so
yeah. Okay, well, do I have a motion and a second, and I would say I vote in favor of that motion as well. So the consent agenda is passed with the exception of item 5A to A, and we will proceed accordingly. So now we're on to item 6A, and I believe we don't have any ability to act further on 6A because we were waiting right on a second witness to come and speak with us. Okay, so I think we need to table 6A until next month.
And there was an email, I believe, going around last time. Do we need to move into confidential technically?
If we want to discuss the content of it, then we should move into executive session.
I don't think we need
Where is
to.
it?
Just there was the issue that was emailed regarding who was going to come before us.
Yeah, and do we have?
I didn't see anybody say whether they had a problem with the substitution of a witness.
Oh, I'm not even remembering that. Let's go into executive session just to talk about that for a moment. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
second.
All right, I vote in favor. So let's go into executive session. On item 6B under unfinished business, which is ethics complaint for potential violation 2022-17. This is where we have another person available to speak with us on the phone. Okay, excellent. So let's go in. I'll need a motion to go into deliberative session to hear this testimony and further deliberate on the matter. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I vote in
I
favor as well.
I know.
Taking turns.
You're so good at the last part.
Okay, your open session.
All right, so we're back in open session regarding item 6B, ethics complaint for potential violation 2022-17. The board has completed some deliberation and deliberative session. We'll need to continue this item to next month with a request for staff to invite the respondent to come and speak with us. Do I need a motion, Clerk, to do that?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that is
I
continued.
do have a question.
Yes.
So, because this is confidential, are we sharing this with Mr. Constant?
We do share, what did we decide on in your memo, Paul?
We do, the memo says basically that we would give him a copy of the complaint. It doesn't say anything about redacting, but I think it would be appropriate to redact, the address, the phone number of the
The
complainant.
person's name.
We have historically not, didn't we determine we do not redact because then people have the kind of procedural right to know who's accusing them?
Right. So we determined that we don't redact any of the substance of the complaint. But I think it didn't specifically address like the personal information, you know. his
Yeah, I
email
think we should
address.
definitely, I think the personal information is confidential under a different provision of the code, right? Because the code does contemplate at least an exemption from the Public Records Act, for like personal information submitted in the context of any kind of municipal like complaint or permitting process. So I think it's appropriate to redact all of like the email and the address and et cetera.
That would be my recommendation. Give him a copy of the complaint, let him know this has been filed, this is what the board's considering, but with the email and the phone number and address of the complaint redacted.
Okay, could we ask that? Who usually does that? Is it usually Megan or usually Lisa?
Megan usually does it, but one of us can take care of it.
Okay, I'll ask the staff to take care of that prior to next meeting.
I would say though, as well, that I think the complainant should be notified that this is gonna go to Mr. Constant, because he's been asked if that would be okay, and he said, no, I do not waive confidentiality. So if we're gonna be sending it, I think he should.
What did we determine? Because we did this previously, right? Before we decided on the procedure.
Yeah, because it's really not his it's not like his choice to waive confidentiality or not.
We should notify him because he has the right to withdraw his complaint, right?
Yeah, that would.
Okay, can we notify him of that before we send it?
So Becky, is that where that one settled? I think I must have missed that meeting, so.
We had and then I think we put it in your memo, right? Maybe we should have your memo accessible in maybe we could ask to have a copy added to our binders. And then I also need a new ethics code, because my ethics code is old and doesn't have the new changes regarding conflict of interest in it.
It's Ethics Code Classic.
Yes.
So I do think the
OG.
new form was changed, correct? That now has a thing on there explaining what the policy is.
Oh,
Like
that's
your-
what we did, yeah.
that Your complaint is going to be provided to the respondent.
But I don't think it's on his, right?
No, he used the old form, so we could I could reach out to him and let him know that your complaint will be provided to Mr. Constant with your personal information.
Redacted.
Yeah, I just think
But
it's
it's
fair
made-
to.
I'll go out.
I just think it's fair to bring it up to him because he was specifically asked if he was willing to waive confidentiality of both his identity and the contents of the complaint, and he said no. So if
And
he
this
was
is-
already asked it and he said no, I think it's common courtesy to just say, by the way, this is what we're doing.
Just looking at. So I feel like in that previous conversation, we decided we were too concerned about due process to delete the name of the complainant, right? So we can delete the contact information, but the name must remain to be shared.
Okay.
I think it's where we landed.
Well, that was the
Oh,
initial debate. Remember, Dee was really upset about the idea of not including the name
Yeah.
of the complainant because it might be material to their ability
Yeah,
to
it
defend
might be
themselves.
like,
and we might not realize
This is
it. It
a
might not be
person,
us
they
to
used to have a
judge.
romantic relationship with or something that we don't know about,
Yeah.
and it would explain the entirety of the concern.
Okay.
Okay,
Just
so I would say let's
checking
leave it at that. Mr. Avasti to reach out to Mr. Wilbanks and then proceed from there. To the complainant. Okay. We're on to item 6C. And here I think we were waiting on, this is not confidential, we were waiting on both Mr. Thornley and Mr. Rebufo to come and talk with us, right? But neither are available today. Okay, so this one gets tabled to next month. And then we're on to request for ethics training. That's also Mr. Rebufo, also not available today. Item 7A. Then we're on to item 7B, request for review pursuant to AMC 405-065 confidential. So I think we need a motion to go into deliberative session for consideration of item 7B. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Alright, all those in favor? Aye. Terry, you going aye to go into deliberative session?
I'm abstaining.
Alright, let's go into deliberative session.
All right, you're back in open session.
Alright, we're back in open session considering the matter of item 7B, request for review pursuant to AMC 405-065. The board shall review this matter pursuant to the requirement of 405065A3 and request that the staff reach out to both the complainant and the respondent to schedule them for future meetings of the Board of Ethics, acknowledging that we now have a long list of people to talk with in our subsequent meetings, so probably not all at one meeting. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we will proceed accordingly. So now we're down to our last item on the agenda today, item 7C, request for advisory opinion 2023-02. I don't believe is confidential. The confidentiality has been waived by Mr. Thurn. So we can discuss. Does anyone know what Alden is doing for the meeting right now? He was the SAP czar when I was here. But then before that, he was like deputy municipal manager, maybe? Do you guys know what he's doing?
He may be in CFO's office now.
In the CFO's office. Okay. Do we know what he does there?
Municipal Projects Director.
That sounds very vague.
Municipal manager. CFO.
My initial inclination is that this is probably fine, but I don't really know what Alden does for the meeting right now, so I would want to ask him some follow-up questions about his job to understand where there could be potential conflicts of interest or where he might be, because it seems like the real conflict of interest would come in him making any kind of decision regarding MOA grants that have been awarded to the Alaska Black Caucus, and I don't, based on his employment title, I don't know why he would have any role in that, but maybe he does.
I agree. I would like to follow up with a couple questions there.
So we'll add him to the list of people we'd like to talk to.
Scheduling ourselves
Do
out
I have
to
a motion
December.
to that effect? Who's ready?
So moved.
So I move.
Second.
All those in favor of asking Alden to come talk with us?
Sure.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So I think we need to talk about meeting scheduling as our last item, because I think we need to fix a standard meeting time, and we need to be comfortable proceeding with quorum and no more than quorum if needed, because that's kind of our legal obligation as a board, and I think we're starting to run behind a little. And I know there's some interest in a special meeting, although I know I myself will be traveling for the next 3 weeks, so summer is hard.
Summer's always hard.
Yeah.
We've had a couple summers, right? If we maybe met once during the summer, we just could not get even a quorum of people in town at the same time.
I sit on a few other boards that don't meet in the summer at all, because it's just like impossible.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
what
think
are we
the
at?
chair is a jerk to make us meet during the summer. To be honest,
I know.
I just think
I second that.
All these people with their ethical questions, if everyone would just calm down.
like, yeah, it's summer. Relax. We'll get to you in September.
You're instituting an action to remove me, so I will take myself to the
No. I withdraw my motion. No.
beach. All right, so it seems like right now we're at the second Tuesday of the month from 1:30 to 3:30. Does the second Tuesday of next month from 1:30 to 3:30 work for the board?
Do you mean
Yep.
Thursday?
I mean Thursday, sorry. Yes, that will be August 10th.
Okay, we're currently scheduled for the 17th. But that's just,
Okay, we're
Yeah,
scheduled.
we usually do the third Thursday of the month.
Okay.
I think, yeah, from 1:30 to 3:30 has been the norm.
Yeah.
The second one's actually better for me. I don't know what happened with our rotation, but the third one is smack in the middle of a bunch of work meetings. I can skip them if I need to, but
I could do either as of right now.
could you do the 10th, Terry?
The 10th is good. Yes.
Patrick?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I would prefer we go ahead with the 10th from 1:30 to 3:30 and notice that meeting now, or whatever. Lock it in. And then we historically have scheduled a bit around Terry's teaching schedule, which varies from semester to semester. Will you know what that is?
I
by
know now,
August?
yes. I
Okay.
teach on Thursdays until 2:15.
Okay, so we would need to go, could we go to 2:30 and do you still make it, or would you want to move to a different day?
I could, let's see, a different day would be better.
We've also had many debates. We used to years ago meet over lunch, but I think that was in a different budget climate when we got to have sandwiches.
Oh, we would get sandwiches. Oh man, that was
and we've
nice.
talked
Gin and
about
tonics.
whether we
So-
have to move
Great
to
board back
That's how I like to
Make
make
it.
mojitos. It was
decisions.
like, then summer participation was really strong, right?
During the mojito era.
During the margarita.
Outside with an
Oh,
umbrella.
The sandwich era was appealing.
The sandwich
It was
era
true, we
was
got
pretty
sandwiches.
good,
What
right.
happened to the sandwich era? I left and you schmoes gave up the sandwiches.
The clerk's office threw us under the bus.
They took
right?
our
It's like,
sandwiches?
yeah, right. It's like you have failed us for the last
Oh.
time.
We have talked about whether we have to move to the evening, so that is always an option if we're unable to find a workable window where we can reliably convene. But it seems like our recent issues have had more to do with summer travel than availability. What days are good for you going forward from August, Terry?
I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11:30 to 2:15.
Okay.
Everything else is nominally open.
I think we have done Wednesdays in the past, probably to accommodate too.
You know what? I may have to move some meetings here. I just realized I'm going to the 7th to the 11th. It just hit me. I'm going to be in Dillingham. But let's see here.
Wednesdays generally work for me. I don't have anything.
Oh, Wednesdays are challenging for me. I sit on 2 other boards that also meet on Wednesdays, so that is a little challenging.
So we're looking at Monday,
August
Friday.
7th.
Could do Monday, Friday, or I could probably be here. I could be here by 2:45. I hate to say 2:30 because it never works. It's like class ends at 2:15, and there's always students who have questions and everything. You know,
We could do 3
my
and
lectures
5.
are so scintillating. It's hard for them. The kids just cling to me. You know,
It's overwhelmed with ethical dilemmas.
You know.
I
I wouldn't put it that way, but that is the truth.
3 to 5.
3 to 5.
Starstruck.
Are we talking Thursdays?
Thursdays.
Thursdays. Oh no, I can't do it because Elias has got something at 4
Okay.
that I have to take, and so I could do that on Tuesdays. I could do 3 to 5 on Tuesdays.
Yeah, and then we have our meetings for the assembly too. So
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
Tuesday
yeah.
is bad for you
Tuesday's
folks,
bad for
right?
assembly reasons.
Let me ask this. I'll make a change to my schedule if it doesn't work, but would the 17th hurt anybody rather than the 10th?
I probably can't be there, but you guys are welcome to meet without me.
I'll go ahead and I'll change my trip date. I can do that.
Yeah, I couldn't do the 17th either.
Okay, all right. I'll change my trip on the 10th to get back on the 9th. I can do
Phone
that.
in from Dillingham.
I would, except it's really not very reliable out there for it's
Are
horrible.
you critiquing your wireless service?
It's-
It does get challenging during fishing season. I am aware
It
of that.
does.
It's a lot better if you have a GCI phone.
I got one of each, but it's still it's not
But the GSA
reliable.
phone, that is a notorious trouble spot for us in the summer because the capacity is not really designed for the influx of commercial fishing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, how about Monday or Friday then? Is that? I mean, the Fridays are death in the summer, but usually once we reach fall, folks are usually around on Fridays.
I don't have any bad day. I'm really, really open. It just occasionally I've got to take a trip to Dillingham and do inspections for a week.
Yeah, Fridays I can do generally like around the lunch hour or later. Mondays I have a standing executive meeting in the morning from 9:30 to 1 p.m. So I can meet in the afternoon, although I want
That's
to
exactly
pause between.
That's almost exactly what I've got. I've got Monday meetings until about 1:30 to 2 o'clock every single Monday, and then but Fridays I can do anything.
Fridays are good. Fridays are probably better
wanna
for
do
me.
a
Mondays I
Friday-
like to be prepping up for the week and
Like,
stuff.
we could
It's the
do
problem with my
Friday
schedule. My
lunch,
schedule's
although
super
maybe we
flexible
won't
until
get
it's
lunch.
not, and then
Yeah.
it's really not. It's not flexible. But Fridays are right, and now I can do any time on Friday, or whatever works well for people.
Same here.
Fridays.
6
could work,
a.m.?
We just have to be up here because usually we have work sessions on Fridays with these.
Are those, we should probably check with Abram though, because that's like, I think Shabbat services are that night, so I don't know if he has like preparatory, like certainly if we got toward the end of the day, I think that would be hard. Maybe we need to provide a couple opportunities, like, we can schedule the August meeting and then, it sounds like we have big window on Friday, it could be like noon or onward, so we could meet a little earlier if that made it possible
Yeah.
for Abram, and then other option sounds like it's Monday afternoon.
Both
Yes.
work for me.
Okay.
Do you guys do doodle polls at all?
Done one.
I'm just wondering, it might be worth it to set up a doodle poll where everybody just kind of separated out as like Monday morning, Monday afternoon, Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon, and have people click what their like general availability is,
We can figure it
and
out.
see if there's one that matches for all across the board.
Oh yeah, yes, all that. That helps.
And I don't think it's feasible to schedule a special meeting before August 10th unless others really want. I will be.
I will be gone
Yeah, I'll be
most of the
gone.
rest of this month.
Me too. I'll be in Dillingham, and then in DC, and then in Ketchikan. Okay, so it sounds like we have some options to discuss next month. And with that, I think that is our entire agenda, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before, what's on the 10th? Things are starting to like pile up. It looks like. Is there a possibility of doing an extra hour on the 10th? Right. I mean, I'm available. I mean, just to try to.
I could do an extra hour.
I think I could do that as well.
I will need to double check, but my husband's gonna be out of town, and so I can't. And so
Oh, yeah.
I gotta make sure someone's
Someone's
just gotta make sure
present.
my mom's in town to pick him up. But other than
If possible, I would suggest.
Okay,
that
so
might not
let's
be a bad
tentatively
idea.
schedule that for 3 hours on Thursday the 10th. Let's see if we can go from there.
We do have a rules committee meeting, so we'll be hearing him.
Okay.
Oh, and he'll be out because he'll be.
Well, we'll have to leave his. I mean, his has been ongoing for years. So honestly, like, I don't feel like that's something we have to resolve. We have so many other things lined up that if we can get through some of the other things,
Yeah. I
we
agree.
can always leave this to September. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Right.
All right, we stand adjourned.